welcome to the Village Boy Academy once again, reaching out to you, courtesy of the Village Boy. Thank you for joining us again today. Today we want to be talking about how government policy affect businesses, and in doing that I will categorize business into two. We have the big businesses, the large corporations, the multinationals. Then we have the SMEs, the small, medium enterprises. Why do I have to categorize businesses into two? Because in terms of policy affects both of them, but then one has influence while the other does not have influence in the making of those policies. So for the big corporations, for the multinationals, most of them, they influence policy, and they influence policy by so many means, so many methods, including even sponsoring candidates for elections, including setting up lobbyists, to influence decision maker, to influence legislations. Sometimes they are there from the beginning of drafting legislation, to defending legislation, and to enacting law. The big corporations, because one, they are organized most of the time. Two, they have the wherewithal, they have the financial muscle most of the time to influence policy making. Actually, it is almost difficult for a policy to affect that will affect them, for them to be completely ignorant of it, not to be aware, about its making. So big corporations, organized labor, as they call them in some climb, they play a crucial role in influencing policy making. Even sometimes they initiate policy. Sometimes they initiate a certain policy with government, so that they write the initial bill, and they follow through until the bill become law. Policy is enacted to implement that law. So big corporation they are organized and they have the wherewithal to influence policy. But it's not so with SMEs. Though the SMEs, they have the numbers, as we say, democracy. Usually you see in every climb, the number of SMEs are usually more than that of the organized labor, organized big corporations or multinationals. In fact, you cannot even begin to think about the ratio it will be. It could be like ratio 1 to a million, if not more. So, but unfortunately, despite that the SMEs who are in large number, they do not so much influence policy, as it were. They are made most of the time to implement policy that has already been formulated, even sometimes by non-actors. What do I mean by non-actors? There are so many government officials that may not understand the nitty-gritty of that particular business or how that business is run, but they are in charge of making policy for the business, and they do it, and the onus is on the SME operators, the business owners, to obey, to follow what is contained in the policy. That is why sometimes you see a business owner complaining that some of the government policy are not favorable to them, and that is understandable, because those who formulate this policy, they may not be actors, they may not be those who have experience running business, as it were. They have their own perception of how business should be run. They have their own perception of what business is enjoying, in quote. And as far as they are concerned, they are more interested in maybe getting revenue for government. So that is why you see them bringing all kind of levy, taxes. In some climb, you have a lot of issue of multiple taxation. You see taxes at various levels of government, various types of government. Everybody just come with his own taxation regime, especially when they are not properly regulated, and the SMEs have no choice but to comply. So SMEs are affected positively and negatively by policy. Positively, sometimes it helps them to enhance their business, it protects them to a very large, reasonable extent. But negatively, it's like certain things are imposed on them. Sometimes they are even beyond their capacity. Certain things are imposed on them that even without taking cognizance of their limitations, because most of these SMEs are run by just an individual. So there are some reports, there are some regulatory report they are supposed to make that they don't even have the capacity to make. But because nobody was at the table, nobody was there to, they don't have a voice in the room, so to say, look, many of our members cannot cope with this. We cannot do this because we don't have the capacity. And sometimes it's not as if the government is doing anything to build that capacity for them. So they just make the policy or make the law and say, hey, you have to obey because it is the law. Sometimes you have, I don't know whether you have experience, you go to a place and say you are trying to complain as a customer, and they simply tell you it is the law, it is not their making, it's what the government says we should be doing, and we have no choice than to do it. So policy affects all businesses, either big, either small, either medium, but policy affects SME more than the big corporations, than the big businesses, because the big businesses themselves, they are most of the time part of that policy making. They influence that policy making either by coming out with a bill, or either by lobbying the legislature, the process of making legislation or making policy. And some of them, even with big pockets, they sponsor candidates for elections, so that those who will protect their interests are already being empowered to contest, and when they win, those people actually they have access, they have more access, direct access to them than ordinary business people. And most SMEs owners don't even participate in politics, even the basic rudiments of politics. They don't vote, they don't attend political party meetings, so they don't have voice in the room, and therefore whatever policy is made without their inputs. And when their input is not there, most of the time, most of the policy made for them may not be favorable to them, and they don't know. So what can be done? Business people should not be too busy to participate in politics, if not for anything, for the purpose of influencing policy that affect them. Yeah, there are two aspects when we talk about policy. There is the advocacy aspect and there is influential aspect. But I will tell you that it is more rewarding to be influencers than to be advocates. Advocates, yes, we are often listened to, they make their view known, but some of the time, if the view does not carry weight, it amounts to nothing at the end of the day. It's almost sometimes become like, permit me to use the word noise making. But those who influence, who are there at the beginning, from throughout the stages of, identifying, defining problems, creating alternatives, and choosing the most optimal alternative as a policy. Big businesses as influencers, they are there. Either they are there, by their physical presence, or those who are in the room are people who kind of want or legitimate allegiance to them, because they have sponsored most of those people into legislature. They have sponsored politicians into office and all that. They influence all these things. Some at the at the back end, behind the scene, influencing. And some of even these policymakers, they will revert to them. They ask for their input, they ask for their opinion about policy that are being made that affect business. But the SMEs, because there are so many, they are scattered, they are not that organized, and everybody is just on his or her own. So policy just come and they just tell them that, okay, you are supposed to do this, you are supposed to do this, and they can only grumble at that moment. When the policy is all out, they have to obey. The only thing that can happen is when that policy is amended or reviewed. Other than that, you have no choice than to obey. So for SMEs owners to influence policy, they should also get organized. We have trade associations that comprise many SMEs. But what do? Oh, they fight for the welfare of the members. But that welfare of members, sometimes many of them have not thought about how can we also influence policy as a fight for members' welfare, because if you cannot run your business as you would want to love it, want to run it without necessarily flouting government laws, then what welfare are we talking about? That should be the primary welfare. How can we, as a trade association, as a trade union comprising SME, how can we influence policy that are beneficial to us? You are not asking for something that is unusual. And one of the places you do it, when individual members of that trade association participate in politics, not necessarily seeking office, but were you there? Are you there at your ward level? Are you there when they hold the political meetings? Because most of the time these decisions are initiated. Most of these issues are initiated at those level. Are you participating at the grassroots, at your ward level? So if you participate, don't say you are too busy to run your business. You want to open your shop at 7 a.m. in the morning, you want to close at 11 p.m. in the morning. You don't have time for frivolities. What you call frivolities will come back to affect you. So it is important that SMEs gather themselves together, organize themselves better, and participate in politics. Be in the room where the decisions are being made, so that you, even when they are deciding or trying to initiate policy, you'll be able to say, oh no, don't do it this way. This one is not. It's going to have negative effect on my members. Oh, this one will not allow us to run well. This one will cripple our operations. That is why today you see government will just come, they say, oh, you have to do this, and you complain. They say, why? It's not their fault. It's the law. It's the policy. They didn't make the government officials will tell you, we didn't make the law. We didn't make the policy. Our job is to implement the policy. So you should be aware, be in the room, be in the kitchen when the food is being cooked, so that you will not be served the remnants. So most SMEs, they are the engine of growth. That has been identified everywhere. There's scholarly articles that confirm, good researches that have confirmed that SMEs, they are the engine of growth. Yes, they are the engine of growth, but most operators in that sector, they do not influence policy. Policies is imposed on them. As for the policy imposed on them are not actually favorable to them. But what can they do about it? Because they are outside where the decision is being made. So let SMEs get more organized. Let them join politics at the very local level. Let them be the voice in the room when things that affect the running of their business are being decided. So that is what I will advise SME operators to do. But not policy. Either you participate or you don't participate. When it is made, it affects you. Policy around your business, if you are not in the room, it doesn't matter. When a policy is made and signed, it will affect you. And it may affect you positively. If it affects you positively all the time, no problem. We are good to go. But most often, you also know that most of this policy affect you negatively. To reverse that trend, roll up your sleeves. Participate in the local politics around you. It doesn't have to mean you contesting for election, but make sure you are there in the room. You are present in the room when decisions that leads to policy are being taken or are being initiated, and you will be glad you did. Politics all affect how we run our business. And at the end of the day, it could affect our bottom line. Yes, we always strive for the bottom line, but there are hurdles that we must cross. We must cross before we attain that bottom line. And one of those hurdles is policy, which sometimes is a result of the politics we are involved. Large corporations sponsor the elections of those that they consider favorable, that are business friendly, favorable to their objective, favorable to their to their purpose. So people who are business friendly, they appoint them to office so that they can be their ears and their eyes in the room when important decision about policy are being initiated, are being made, and are being imposed on businesses. So SMEs get together, either at the trade level or at whatever level, get involved in your local politics, get yourself in that room where decision about how business is run is made, and you'll be glad you did. Don't leave policy making alone, either to the politicians or to the civil servants. Be part and parcel of it, so that your interests will be well protected. Thank you until we come back or come your way once again next time. Thank you for subscribing, share with friends, and put on your notification so that when new video drops, you can be informed.